There is a silent war unfolding within the human body, one where every meal becomes a message, every bite a command to the cells that decide our fate. For decades, medicine has spoken of surgery, radiation, and drugs, but few have paused to ask, what if the way we eat could whisper a different language to disease itself? Hidden beneath the noise of modern nutrition lies a forgotten science, the power of feeding not the cancer but the life that resists it. Today we uncover what researchers now call metabolic therapy, an ancient rhythm rediscovered through modern lenses where nourishment becomes strategy and balance becomes defense. My friend, welcome to our small documentary about the art of eating to starve cancer. If you are drawn to the mysteries of the human body and the wisdom of nature, I invite you to stay. Give a like, subscribe, and join this journey through the invisible battlefield that lies inside us all. Remember, this content is educational, not a medical prescription. Always seek your trusted doctor's guidance before making changes to your diet. Cancer is not only a storm of mutations, it is a disturbance of energy itself. Deep within the invisible machinery of our cells, there exists an ancient rhythm that converts food into life. A dialogue between mitochondria and molecules, between oxygen and carbon, between what we eat and what we become. When this rhythm is broken, when the internal fire burns too hot or too dim, the body begins to lose its sense of order. Otto Warburg, a German biochemist in the early 20th century, saw this disruption long before the age of molecular genetics. He noticed that cancer cells devour glucose, turning it into lactate even when oxygen is plentiful. An odd behavior, for healthy cells use oxygen efficiently to create energy. This phenomenon, later named the Warburg effect, became one of the most haunting clues in the history of oncology. It suggested that cancer might be, at its core, a disease of disturbed metabolism, a rebellion of energy flow. Every cancer cell, in its feverish hunger, behaves as though trapped in a primitive state of existence, one that prefers chaos over precision. Modern imaging techniques now allow us to see this hunger in real time, tumors glowing under PT scans as they consume glucose with insatiable appetite. It is a fiery hunger, not symbolic but literal, written into the biochemistry of disease. To understand why this hunger matters, we must explore how the body normally regulates energy. Glucose, the simplest sugar, enters cells through gatekeepers called insulin receptors. Once inside, it is transformed into ATP, the molecular spark that powers every motion, thought, and repair. In cancer, however, these processes are hijacked. The insulin and IGF-1 pathways, designed to respond to the body's needs, are manipulated to favor uncontrolled growth. Every sweetened drink, every processed carbohydrate can trigger tiny waves of insulin, invisible to us yet powerful to cells that listen. Cancer listens too. It reads these hormonal signals as permission to divide, to expand, to claim more territory within the body's landscape. Researchers now trace this cascade to another crucial switch known as mTOR, a master regulator of growth and aging. When mTOR remains overactive, the cell forgets how to pause, how to rest, how to renew. The dance of growth and stillness becomes unbalanced, and in that imbalance, malignancy thrives. Thus, the metabolic nature of cancer is not only about sugar, it is about the conversation between nutrients and hormones, between abundance and restraint, between our choices and our cellular fate. Some scientists describe cancer as a metabolic parasite, an entity that feeds on our internal abundance. It survives by exploiting the modern environment, constant eating, disrupted circadian rhythms, stress, and sedentary living. When there is always energy available, when the bloodstream never truly rests, cancer finds fertile ground. Yet within this vulnerability lies its weakness. Unlike healthy cells, cancer cells depend heavily on specific fuels, mainly glucose and certain amino acids like glutamine. They lack the flexibility that allows normal cells to switch between fuel sources. When energy becomes scarce, when oxidative stress rises, when oxygen is properly balanced again, their chaotic metabolism begins to collapse. This is the foundation of what some researchers call metabolic therapy, the intentional manipulation of the body's energy systems to make life harder for malignant cells while strengthening healthy ones. It is not starvation of the person, but starvation of the disease achieved by restoring harmony to the body's biochemical tides. But the human body is not a laboratory petri dish, and the reality is complex. Cancer is not one creature, but a vast family of disorders, each with its own map of mutations, metabolic signatures, and adaptive abilities. Some tumors feed primarily on sugar, others on fats or amino acids. Some hide behind hypoxia, low oxygen niches where metabolism shifts into different gears. For this reason, the idea of starving cancer must always be paired with humility. The same dietary change that weakens one type of tumor might fuel another. What matters is not absolute deprivation, but intelligent modulation. By understanding the metabolic fingerprint of each cancer, researchers hope to design personalized strategies that alter the nutrient landscape in a way that deprives the tumor of its preferred resources while nourishing the host. This approach demands precision, discipline, and deep respect for the organism as a whole, for we are ecosystems, not machines, and every intervention echoes through countless pathways. The study of metabolism has therefore re-emerged as one of the most promising frontiers in oncology. Once overshadowed by genetics, it now rises again as the missing half of the story. For decades, we searched for mutations, assuming that DNA alone determined fate. Yet mutations do not act in isolation. They live within environments shaped by nutrients, hormones, and cellular energy. When the environment shifts, gene expression follows. Diet and metabolism influence not only how cells grow, but which genes are active or silent. This revelation redefines prevention itself. Food becomes a form of information, sending signals to the genome about whether to repair, reproduce, or decay. Researchers at major institutions now explore how metabolic modulation, through fasting, dietary shifts, or targeted compounds, can enhance traditional therapies, making chemotherapy or radiation more effective while protecting healthy tissue. The ancient idea that "let food be thy medicine" finds new scientific weight in the laboratories of our century, and yet, despite this unfolding promise, there remains an air of mystery, a reminder that we are only beginning to translate these insights into practice. The body is a network of infinite feedback loops. When we touch one, a dozen others respond. To truly understand the metabolic nature of cancer is to accept that healing is not about control, but about restoration. It is about recreating the conditions under which healthy metabolism thrives and disorder cannot find ground. Every step toward balance, every night of deep sleep, every moment of calm, every natural meal unpolluted by excess becomes a message of resistance written in biochemical language. The science may be modern, but the wisdom is ancient. When the body remembers how to manage energy with grace, disease loses its voice. The war is not fought with violence, but with harmony. Fasting is one of the oldest biological rituals of life, older than agriculture, older than language itself. Every living creature has known moments without food, a rhythm of hunger and replenishment written into our very evolution. When the body is deprived of constant feeding, it does not collapse. It awakens. Modern science has rediscovered what our ancestors practiced instinctively. Cycles of fasting may unlock deep, protective mechanisms that silence disease and renew vitality. In the context of cancer, fasting has emerged as a fascinating and controversial subject. It began with observations in the laboratory, when animals were given fewer calories or were made to fast before exposure to toxins or radiation. Their healthy cells became remarkably resistant to damage, while cancer cells became more vulnerable. This paradox inspired a series of studies exploring how temporary deprivation could act as a form of biological discipline. The body, when given pause from digestion, enters a state of autophagy, literally self-eating, where damaged proteins, faulty mitochondria, and precancerous anomalies are broken down and recycled. It is as if the body uses hunger as a cleansing fire, purging itself of cellular debris and weakness. The first modern experiments that linked fasting to cancer suppression began in the mid-20th century, when scientists noticed that calorie restriction extended lifespan in rodents and delayed the onset of tumors. The reduction of total energy intake by even 30 or 40% could lower the incidence of many cancers. These results seemed miraculous, yet they were not mystical. They were metabolic. By consuming less, insulin and IGF-1 levels fall, lowering the hormonal signals that tell cells to grow and divide. In that quieter hormonal environment, potential malignancies lose some of their fuel. Later studies found that when fasting is practiced intermittently, for example, 16 hours without food followed by 8 hours of nourishment, similar benefits can arise without severe calorie deprivation. The body alternates between the fed and the fasted state like day and night, activating repair pathways that evolution designed for survival. In this cycle, the liver produces ketone bodies, an alternative fuel that healthy cells can use efficiently, but that cancer cells often cannot. The change in energy source alters the entire metabolic landscape, creating temporary stress that cancer cells struggle to endure. But fasting does not act alone. It orchestrates a symphony of signals that touch nearly every system in the body. During fasting, inflammation markers drop, oxidative stress diminishes, and immune surveillance improves. The immune system becomes sharper, more selective, like a hunter resting before striking again. Natural killer cells and T lymphocytes, responsible for recognizing and destroying malignant cells, become more active after certain fasting cycles. At the same time, blood glucose levels stabilize and lipid metabolism becomes more efficient. All these changes together create a terrain that is less hospitable to tumor progression. Research from institutions such as the University of Southern California and the National Institute on Aging has demonstrated that fasting before chemotherapy can make treatment more tolerable and, in some cases, more effective. Healthy cells enter a protective mode, reducing proliferation and conserving energy, while cancer cells remain exposed and metabolically reckless, a phenomenon scientists call differential stress resistance. It is a biological loophole, revealing how ancient metabolic programs might be used as allies in modern medicine. Still, fasting is not a magic shield, and science treats it with caution. The human body is diverse, and what protects one may harm another. Extended fasting without medical supervision can lead to nutrient deficiencies, muscle loss, and fatigue, especially in people already weakened by disease. Cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy or with significant weight loss risk worsening cachexia if fasting is misapplied. The art lies in balance, fasting not as punishment, but as precision. Researchers now study variations such as fasting-mimicking diets, which replicate the metabolic effects of fasting through plant-based, low-protein regimens lasting a few days, providing essential nutrients while maintaining low glucose and insulin levels. These protocols are being tested in clinical trials for their potential to enhance the effectiveness of chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and immunotherapy. They are not meant to replace conventional treatment, but to assist it, re-educating the body's energy networks toward resilience and regeneration. Beyond the laboratory, fasting touches something spiritual and timeless. Many of the world's great traditions, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, practiced fasting not for science but for purification of the soul. Now neuroscience and oncology converge to reveal that this act of restraint heals both mind and body. During fasting, ketone bodies such as beta-hydroxybutyrate cross into the brain, promoting clarity, calm, and focus. Stress hormones fall and neuroprotective genes awaken. The same mechanisms that sharpen the mind also appear to help regulate the internal environment in ways that reduce the risk of metabolic disorders linked to cancer, such as obesity and insulin resistance. In this light, fasting becomes more than a method. It is a dialogue between consciousness and biology, between will and metabolism. It reminds us that abstinence is not emptiness, but transformation, a recalibration of the internal world. Modern clinicians now look to the horizon where nutrition, metabolism, and oncology converge. The future may not lie in permanent fasting, but in intelligent cycles of metabolic rest, a day, a week, or a season devoted to realignment. Combined with nutrient-dense foods, hydration, and mindful breathing, fasting becomes a therapeutic rhythm that supports every aspect of healing. Cancer thrives on chaos, but the body thrives on rhythm. When we return to the natural pulse of hunger and satiation, we restore the intelligence of our metabolism. What science calls metabolic stress may simply be the body remembering how to live without excess. It is not the absence of food that heals, it is the presence of harmony. There is a quiet revolution taking place in the way we think about food and disease, a reawakening to the idea that metabolism is not a background process but the language through which health speaks. At the center of this revolution lies the ketogenic diet, a nutritional strategy once designed for epilepsy, now re-examined through the lens of cancer biology. The principle is deceptively simple. When carbohydrate intake drops dramatically, the body shifts from burning glucose to burning fat, producing molecules called ketone bodies. These ketones, primarily beta-hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetate, become the new currency of energy, flowing through the bloodstream to nourish the brain, muscles, and other organs. Yet cancer cells driven by damaged mitochondria and rigid metabolic pathways often cannot utilize these fuels efficiently. In this mismatch lies a potential vulnerability. By lowering glucose availability and increasing ketones, the ketogenic diet may create a biochemical environment in which healthy cells thrive and malignant ones starve. This concept is not fantasy. It has been tested in animal models where tumors grow more slowly or become more sensitive to traditional therapies when the host is in ketosis. The metabolic shift, though invisible to the naked eye, represents a fundamental reprogramming, a new balance between energy and survival. The roots of this dietary approach are old, even ancient. In the 1920s, physicians observed that fasting reduced epileptic seizures, and by mimicking the fasting state with a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet, they could sustain similar effects without total deprivation. Decades later, researchers began to wonder whether the same metabolic conditions that calm a storming brain could also slow the storm of cancer. The logic was profound. If tumors depend on glucose, and if ketone bodies are a fuel they cannot easily exploit, then perhaps inducing ketosis could pressure them metabolically. Studies in mice bearing aggressive brain tumors, such as glioblastoma, found that ketogenic diets reduced tumor growth and prolonged survival. In some cases, the diet appeared to enhance the effects of chemotherapy and radiation by reducing oxidative stress in healthy tissue while increasing it in malignant cells. Early clinical observations in humans, though limited, echoed these patterns. Patients tolerated the diet relatively well, experienced weight stabilization, and in some reports showed delayed progression. Yet the evidence remains early and fragile, and the diet's complexity demands respect rather than fanaticism. To understand why ketosis may matter, one must descend into the biochemistry of the cell. Under normal conditions, glucose metabolism generates a steady stream of ATP through glycolysis and the mitochondrial respiratory chain, but when carbohydrates vanish from the diet, insulin levels fall, and the liver begins converting fatty acids into ketones. These ketones not only supply energy, they also act as signaling molecules influencing inflammation, gene expression, and oxidative balance. In the context of cancer, this shift has multiple effects. Lower glucose means reduced insulin and IGF-1, depriving tumors of growth signals. Ketones may also inhibit histone deacetylases, altering gene expression in ways that suppress tumor-promoting pathways. And mitochondrial efficiency improves in healthy cells, enhancing resilience. Meanwhile, cancer cells, unable to adapt fully, enter energetic distress. They may continue to ferment glucose anaerobically, producing lactate and acidifying their environment, a state that further limits their function. This is the metabolic trap envisioned by scientists like Thomas Seyfried, who described cancer as a mitochondrial disease first and a genetic one second. However, the ketogenic diet is not a universal key. Some tumors possess the metabolic flexibility to use alternative fuels, such as glutamine, or to upregulate pathways that allow partial ketone utilization. In these cases, restricting carbohydrates alone may not be enough. Researchers now explore press-pulse strategies, combining ketogenic nutrition with targeted metabolic inhibitors that block glutamine metabolism or angiogenesis. Others test the synergy between ketosis and fasting-mimicking diets, seeking a gentle yet precise modulation of energy flow rather than harsh deprivation. The human body is adaptable, but so is cancer. What makes the difference is coherence, aligning diet, circadian rhythm, and therapy so that every biological clock ticks toward recovery. Some oncologists use ketosis not as a weapon, but as a rhythm, a temporary metabolic state that complements conventional treatment, reducing inflammation and improving the body's tolerance to toxic drugs. It is a dance between scarcity and sufficiency, a lesson that life itself has rehearsed for millions of years. There are, of course, practical and ethical considerations. A ketogenic diet, if poorly implemented, can lead to nutrient deficiencies, dehydration, and metabolic strain on the liver and kidneys. Patients with advanced disease or fragile nutritional status may not tolerate it well. That is why any metabolic intervention must be guided by professionals, physicians, nutritionists, and oncologists who understand the delicate balance between stress and support. The goal is not to turn food into a dogma, but to return it to its rightful place as a source of harmony. For some, the ketogenic path brings mental clarity, stable energy, and reduction of inflammation. For others, it becomes an unnecessary burden. Precision is everything. And beyond the clinical results, there is a deeper truth. The ketogenic diet invites us to reconsider what hunger means, not as an enemy, but as a teacher that refines how energy flows through us. In the grand tapestry of medicine, The ketogenic approach is still a single thread, but it shines brightly because it touches the intersection of metabolism, evolution, and self-regulation. It reminds us that food is not passive, it is information written in molecules. Each choice of fuel shapes how our cells behave, how genes respond, how energy circulates. To eat with awareness is to participate in the orchestration of our internal symphony. The ketogenic state, when applied wisely, can act as a quiet form of metabolic discipline, a state in which the body remembers its ancient intelligence, to endure scarcity, to protect what matters, to heal through adaptation. Perhaps that is the secret hidden within the simplicity of this diet. Not punishment, but remembrance of the way life has always survived, by knowing when to feed and when to fast, in the quiet geometry of leaves, roots, and seeds. Nature writes instructions older than civilization itself. Every fruit, every vegetable, every grain carries chemical poetry, coded defense systems shaped by light, water, and the eternal struggle for survival. When we eat plants, we borrow their wisdom. Their pigments, their bitterness, their aroma are not ornaments but messages, evolved weapons against decay and disease. Modern nutrition calls these molecules phytochemicals, polyphenols, carotenoids, glucosinolates, and countless others. In the human body, they act as subtle architects, reshaping metabolism, quelling inflammation, repairing DNA, and often disarming the mechanisms that allow cancer to grow. The beauty of plant-based eating lies not in deprivation, but in abundance, an abundance of color, texture, and molecular complexity that no synthetic supplement can fully replicate. Each color on the plate corresponds to a set of biological tools: green for chlorophyll and sulforaphane, red for lycopene and anthocyanins, yellow for curcuminoids and quercetin. Together they form a spectrum of protection, a palette of survival that the body interprets as instruction rather than indulgence. Among the most studied of these compounds is sulforaphane, a sulfur-rich molecule found in cruciferous plants such as broccoli sprouts. It has the power to activate the body's own detoxification enzymes, enhancing the removal of carcinogens before they can damage DNA. Another is curcumin, the golden pigment of turmeric, revered for centuries in traditional medicine, and now confirmed to influence pathways related to inflammation and apoptosis, the graceful death of damaged cells. Resveratrol, found in grapes and berries, modulates sirtuins, the so-called longevity proteins that govern cellular repair. Green tea's catechins, garlic's allicin, and the anthocyanins of blueberries all share a theme. They interfere with the very processes that tumors exploit: angiogenesis, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation. Yet the power of these compounds is not magic but context. They work best not as isolated extracts but as part of a symphony, interacting with fiber, fats, and micronutrients in the living matrix of food. A single molecule cannot replicate the orchestra of a whole diet. When we consume these plants as nature designed them, unrefined, varied, and alive, we engage the full complexity of the system that evolution built for balance. This philosophy echoes through studies of the Mediterranean diet, often praised for its anti-cancer properties. Built on the foundation of fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, olive oil, and moderate fish intake, it represents more than just a menu. It is a way of eating that respects the body's tempo. The abundance of monounsaturated fats from olives, omega-3s from fish, and antioxidants from herbs creates a harmony between energy and protection. Populations that follow this pattern show lower incidence of colorectal, breast, and prostate cancers, alongside reduced inflammation and oxidative damage. Scientists now trace these benefits to molecular effects: improved lipid metabolism, reduced insulin signaling, and enhanced DNA repair. The Mediterranean table is not austere. It is generous, built on slowness and connection, on food as ritual rather than rush. It teaches that the rhythm of eating, the pauses between hunger and satisfaction, may be as therapeutic as the ingredients themselves. At the opposite end of industrial abundance lies the modern diet. Ultra-processed, sweetened, stripped of fiber and vitality, these foods are ghosts, engineered for pleasure, not nourishment. They flood the bloodstream with sugar, ignite insulin surges, and create low-grade inflammation that whispers disease into existence. Chronic exposure to refined carbohydrates and trans fats distorts the microbiome, the microbial ecosystem in our gut that co-governs immunity, metabolism, and even mood. When the gut's balance collapses, toxins and inflammatory molecules seep into the circulation, creating a fertile terrain for malignancy. In contrast, plant-based diets restore microbial harmony. The fibers in fruits, legumes, and grains feed beneficial bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, molecules that calm inflammation, protect colon cells, and inhibit tumor formation. What was once called roughage is in truth a molecular language of cooperation between human and microbe. To eat against cancer is therefore not to follow a trend, but to return to a biological truth. The earth already grows what our cells crave: bitter greens that detoxify, roots that ground us, seeds that nourish, and spices that defend. Even mushrooms, neither plant nor animal, hold immunological treasures from beta-glucans to ergothioneine that awaken dormant aspects of our natural defense. Whole foods do not merely prevent disease. They repair the damage of excess, guiding the metabolism back toward equilibrium. A plant-based lifestyle does not mean rigid exclusion, but intelligent inclusion. The art of choosing what is alive over what is synthetic, what grows in soil over what is shaped in steel. For those who fear weakness without meat, science reveals that strength lies in variety, not in volume. Muscles, immunity, and clarity all flourish when the diet reflects diversity. Ultimately, to eat plants consciously is to engage in a quiet act of rebellion, a refusal to participate in the slow violence of processed abundance. It is to recognize that the colors of food are not decoration, but instruction, that the taste of bitterness is a reminder of medicine, and that each meal is a conversation between the earth and our DNA. Every apple, every leaf of spinach, every grain of quinoa carries a signature of sunlight transformed into life. When we consume it, we continue that transformation within ourselves. The science of anti-cancer nutrition, for all its complexity, circles back to a simple truth: the closer we eat to nature, the closer we are to health. Integration is the hidden art of healing and the bridge between knowledge and embodiment, between science and practice. To starve cancer through nutrition is not to chase a single diet or follow a rigid dogma, but to orchestrate a balance between the body's natural rhythms and the modern understanding of metabolism. Each human being carries a unique metabolic fingerprint, a different response to fasting, to fat, to fiber, to protein. Integration begins with listening, not to trends but to the signals of the body itself. The first principle of integrative nutrition in oncology is harmony, the alignment of cellular energy with circadian rhythm, rest, and emotional balance. Eating at consistent times, sleeping in darkness, and moving gently after meals all help regulate insulin and glucose, the twin messengers that control the tide of energy in every tissue. When these cycles are respected, metabolism calms, inflammation fades, and the terrain becomes less favorable to disease. In this sense, diet is not a prescription but a daily choreography, one that trains the body to alternate between nourishment and renewal, action and stillness. An integrative approach combines the strengths of different strategies: fasting, low carbohydrate control, and plant-based richness into a coherent, sustainable pattern. A practical way to begin is through time-restricted eating, allowing at least 12 to 16 hours between the last meal of the day and the next. This window gives the body time to enter repair mode without extreme deprivation. Within that window of nourishment, the focus shifts to whole foods rich in fiber and color, moderate in protein, and mindful in fat quality. Olive oil, avocados, nuts, and omega-3 rich seeds provide steady energy without provoking sharp insulin spikes. From the ketogenic model, we borrow the discipline of keeping sugars low. From the plant-based model, we borrow diversity, antioxidants, and the power of phytonutrients. When these principles converge, the result is not restriction but intelligence, a diet that supports mitochondrial function, immune coordination, and hormonal balance. Some call this metabolic flexibility, the ability of the body to move gracefully between fuel sources, adapting without stress. It is the hallmark of resilience, and resilience is the opposite of cancer. Hydration and micronutrients also play quiet but profound roles. Water is the vehicle of metabolism. Without it, the chemistry of life slows and stagnates. Yet hydration is not only about quantity but timing. Drinking water between meals, not during, allows digestion to proceed with precision, while herbal infusions like green tea or chamomile add layers of antioxidants and calm. Minerals such as magnesium, zinc, and selenium act as cofactors for hundreds of enzymatic reactions, many of which control DNA repair and immune defense. Deficiencies in these elements can silently weaken the body's capacity to resist malignancy. Similarly, vitamin D, more hormone than vitamin, has shown consistent links to lower cancer risk and improved immune regulation. Integrative care invites patients to view these nutrients not as supplements alone, but as reflections of sunlight, soil, and breath, reminders that health is a network of small, harmonious acts. Beyond nutrition, movement, and mindfulness complete the cycle. Exercise does not merely burn calories, it reshapes metabolism at the molecular level. Muscles, when used regularly, act as glucose sinks, improving insulin sensitivity and reducing circulating sugar levels that tumors might exploit. Even gentle activities, walking after meals, stretching, slow breathing, stimulate lymphatic flow, aiding detoxification and immune surveillance. Meditation and controlled breathing reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that can drive inflammation and impair digestion. Emotional stress, if left unchecked, creates a biochemical climate that mirrors metabolic chaos, elevated glucose, suppressed immunity, disrupted sleep. Integrative oncology therefore regards calmness as a form of therapy, to breathe deeply, to eat slowly, to sleep fully. These are not luxuries, but conditions of healing. In practice, integration also means cooperation between patient and doctor, between conventional medicine and holistic wisdom. Chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery remain essential weapons, but they can be accompanied by metabolic alignment to improve tolerance and outcome. For example, fasting mimicking cycles before chemotherapy may protect healthy tissue from toxicity, while anti-inflammatory diets during recovery can reduce fatigue and enhance regeneration. No natural approach should replace medical treatment, but neither should medicine ignore the body's own intelligence. Integrative oncology is the space where both meet, where the precision of science merges with the intuition of life. This partnership requires humility, communication, and continuous observation. Healing is not linear. It is rhythmic, responsive, and deeply personal. Ultimately, the practical path to starving cancer begins not with fear, but with awareness. It is not about counting calories or eliminating joy, but about restoring coherence between what we eat and what we are. The body speaks the language of molecules, not slogans. It understands balance better than extremity, rhythm better than rigidity. To live in harmony with one's metabolism is to live in harmony with nature itself, to remember that every organ, every cell, every heartbeat is an echo of the environment we create inside and outside of ourselves. When nutrition becomes a dialogue rather than a doctrine, the body responds not with resistance, but with gratitude. And gratitude, too, is medicine. Science advances not by certainty, but by humility, by acknowledging what we do not yet understand. In the conversation about starving cancer, this humility is essential. For all its poetry and promise, metabolism remains a vast and intricate map. Every cell is a universe, every tumor a constellation of mutations, signaling pathways, and adaptive mechanisms. What works in one biological context may fail in another. While fasting, low-carbohydrate diets, and plant-based nutrition have shown striking effects in animal models and early human studies, large-scale clinical evidence is still emerging. Cancer's complexity defies simple formulas. It evolves, learns, and resists. Some tumors adapt to glucose scarcity by turning to alternative fuels like fatty acids or amino acids. Others alter their microenvironment to survive under stress. The idea of starving cancer, therefore, must be seen not as an act of aggression, but as an act of balance, shifting the metabolic landscape in favor of the body's integrity. Science teaches us that metabolism is plastic, dynamic, and deeply personal. To translate this into therapy, we must walk slowly, with both enthusiasm and caution intertwined. Ethically, this landscape demands responsibility. Too often, people desperate for hope turn to extreme diets or self-prescribed regimens in the belief that food alone can cure. The risk lies not only in physical harm, malnutrition, electrolyte imbalance, or loss of strength, but in psychological burden, the guilt of believing one has failed to heal through willpower. Medicine must never allow the language of discipline to become the language of blame. Food can be powerful, but it is not omnipotent. True integrative oncology invites compassion alongside precision. It asks physicians and patients to collaborate, to question, and to measure outcomes with rigor. Ethical science respects individuality. It adapts rather than dictates. It acknowledges that biology is not a battlefield of good versus evil, but a conversation between order and disorder. Within this conversation, the role of nutrition is guidance, Not punishment, not restriction, but the restoration of the body's innate intelligence. Another challenge lies in accessibility. Metabolic therapies, though seemingly simple, require education, fresh food, and consistent medical monitoring. Luxuries not always available to all. Social inequality shapes disease more than any single molecule. Whole food diets, organic produce, and time to cook are privileges unevenly distributed. The ethics of metabolic medicine must therefore include justice, how to make prevention and nourishment accessible beyond borders, beyond income, beyond trend. Public health policy has a role here, shifting subsidies from ultra-processed products toward fresh, living foods, integrating nutritional literacy into schools, and fostering community programs that reconnect people with the act of cooking. If the body is a garden, society must be its soil. Starving cancer in the collective sense means feeding humanity better, not with scarcity, but with wisdom. The scientific frontier continues to expand. Researchers are now mapping metabolic fingerprints of specific cancers through metabolomics, the detailed study of small molecules circulating in blood and tissues. This approach allows clinicians to predict how a tumor might respond to fasting, to specific nutrients, or to metabolic drugs. The dream is personalized metabolic therapy, a treatment plan guided not by general rules but by each patient's biochemical reality. Artificial intelligence already assists in analyzing these immense datasets, revealing subtle correlations between diet, microbiome composition, and cancer behavior. Some scientists envision a future where a drop of blood could reveal the most compatible nutritional strategy for each individual, a metabolic signature guiding prevention and recovery alike. Such precision will not replace the human element of care, but amplify it, weaving intuition and data into a seamless fabric of understanding. In the end, every discovery we have shared, every molecule, every rhythm of hunger and renewal returns to one simple truth. The body remembers how to heal when we give it space to breathe. Cancer is not only a story of cells gone astray, but of balance forgotten, and balance can be remembered. The food we choose, the silence between meals, the sleep we honor, the peace we defend within ourselves. These are not small acts. They are forms of medicine written in the oldest language on earth. Science gives us the map, but wisdom teaches us how to walk it. To eat consciously is to rebel against chaos. To rest deeply is to protect the fire of life. To live in rhythm is to starve what seeks disorder and to nourish what seeks harmony. My friend, if this journey has stirred something in you, curiosity, courage, or calm, stay with us. Like, share, and subscribe to keep exploring these hidden frontiers of medicine where nature and knowledge meet. And always remember, nothing in this documentary replaces the care of your trusted physician. It only seeks to awaken the listener within, the one who knows that healing begins not with fear, but with awareness.